Welcome to the WeddingPros podcast. We're still in New York and hanging out. We're meeting New York peeps. How you doing, Jared?
I'm doing well, Jay. Just had a great meal and excited about having our next guest.
Yeah. So we got Rachel Urban from Loli Events. Tell a little bit about yourself, Rachel.
Yeah, so I have been working with Loli Events for about 5 years. The company's been around for about 10. We are here in New York and also in Paris, and we plan a luxury style, more approachable type of luxury type wedding.
So we were talking during lunch, and we kind of ran the gamut of types of things. But one of the things that I thought was really interesting is you were talking about this idea of like you really have one company but two different faces, bicontinental kind of thing. How did that get going?
Yeah, so about 10 years ago, Lauren started Loli Events. A few years in, we had Corley that came on board and started working here in New York specifically, but Lauren always had this sort of like French background, grew up in Paris. So once Corley was working here for a few years, she did such an awesome job, she decided to move back to France. And, I feel like it's been ever since, since I've been working with the company, since Lauren's been here, having that sort of a tie in Paris has been it's really nice to have someone on the ground over there. A lot of our clients tend to be from the States, some from Canada, but regardless, majority of them are going over to France as a destination. So things like communication, having someone on the ground over there, the time difference, the budget difference, everything sort of makes sense to have someone local, so we're super grateful for.
Yeah, so you're able to make those destination weddings much easier because not only do you have a person in the state side, but then you have someone on the European side, and that's like a lot of people's dream, right? And if you're working in our industry, a lot of people, their dream is to do New York, Paris, and you guys get to do it. So you're living the dream in terms of like the luxury weddings. That's incredible.
Have you been to Paris recently?
Yes, I have. Actually, not recently, but I went over for a wedding in 2016, so It's been a few years.
Yeah, sure.
No, I love it, and it's one of those things too where I look at our weddings in France and I'm just constantly amazed and blown away and just wow,
jealous of yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Just can you imagine just being over there and planning weddings? And the same thing for them. They're just like New York City, what a cool spot. And so I guess the grass is greener everywhere. But
Totally. That's awesome. So it's like you guys are kind of living the dream, killing it, making amazing work. What do you love the most about if there's one part of what you get to do, what's the part that excites you the most in terms of making people's day amazing? And especially, obviously, people are always interested in the design side, but, is there a part that just excites you about designing events still?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that there's something to be said about the fact that after a wedding, I feel like for us, we have what we always say, like 12 to 15 weddings a year. But for these couples, hopefully they only have one. And so for the
especially
way that
only one a year, right? Yeah.
So I feel like the impression that we end up making on their lives, it's something that we don't ever have like a tangible item. We don't have a video, we don't have a photo, but this experience, this memory that they have with us, I think to me is one of my favorite parts of it. I feel like whenever I first started planning, a lot of it, not that we've ever been the type of company to crank out. I feel like one thing that we do pride ourselves on is that we don't have this cookie cutter wedding that everyone feels different, blah, blah, blah. But I think that being so new into the industry, I was kind of a little more timid, just learning my way and doing more day of smaller packages where I didn't have as much involvement with couples. And then, as I've grown in the industry and as the business has grown, I feel like I have this lasting, the wedding ends and the couple is let's hang out, let's be friends, let's get drinks, let's stay in touch. Or I have mothers of brides, they're come to family dinner, come be part of our family still, and don't disappear kind of thing. And I think that's just something that I really, I don't know, it just sits so well with me to be able
it's
to,
rewarding.
Yeah.
I was telling you over lunch, we still work with many of our brides.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I see them, they're Aunt Natalie Denice sent me some macaroons in the mail on Friday.
Yeah.
Nicest lady ever, by the way.
They were
But
delicious,
she was one of
Natalie.
our brides.
Thank you,
She
Natalie.
was one of our
Yeah.
brides. And like, you really are. So I'm thinking about my own wedding. It's the one I can't think. I'm honestly racking my brain trying to think of another day that I remember the morning, middle, afternoon, night.
Yeah.
I remember.
How many days do you plan by like every 5 minutes?
I remember everything about that day. I remember waking up. I remember having breakfast. I remember having lunch. I remember like, that's a crazy day.
Yeah.
Like when you think about it, and you're just like, it's so special that we get to do that. And so for you, you know, I think like hopefully you're not so jaded, by the way, if you're listening to this, that you forget that. Don't forget that. It's your power. That's how you make good work, is giving a crap about people.
Right.
Style-wise, how would you kind of describe what you guys do with Loli? You don't even have to describe it, but tell us a little bit about what it looks. What is a Loli event to you?
Yeah, so I think that our aesthetic tends to be a lot more approachable. It's a client that still wants a luxury wedding, but they want it in sort of a modern way. Things that tend to be a little more organic and natural, and I think that kind of falls into us as planners. I think it falls into their venue that they end up booking at. I think it's a lot of their vendors that tend to be a little more relaxed and approachable. Just kind of the whole day, I think, tends to just be a little more organic, but still clients that want this elevated experience.
The elevated care, you know?
Right.
I loved what you said earlier because I think it's so true. I still see brides do it today where they're like, my wedding is all about my Pinterest board. It's all about trying to make it look a certain way, and like the shade of flowers is what you said. And going back to, well, how's the people that are attending, how are they actually experiencing this event, and like in a way that's going to be memorable? Like you find that people are kind of going back to their roots of like, let's just have something that people can have a good experience. You find that's generally the case, and that's what you're trying to bring to the table. Right.
I mean, and it's a little of both, right? Because we still, for us on our, our website, our Instagram, we still, don't get me wrong, we still love a beautiful wedding that is featured and is gorgeous and ends up on, Pinterest or wherever. But at the same time, we really pride ourselves on the guest experience and making something that's unique and not cookie cutter, but also something where your guests are having a good time. And it's interesting, too, it really falls on, like I mentioned to you guys, things that people might not even notice. If they don't notice that anything's wrong, then it's a good time versus them just being like, no one's going to go home from a wedding and just be like, you know what, I felt like I was at a comfortable body temperature all night long. Like, nobody says that.
The best part about that wedding.
They know when they're hot, and they know when they're cold, and they know when there's a line at the bar, and they know when there's a line for the
I had no
bathroom.
awareness of my body temperature, and that was my favorite part of the wedding.
My wife now is like, you're so picky about everything. And I'm like, it's literally, I've become so picky because every little detail is we work with great planners where every little detail is thought about, and it's like if anything goes wrong, I'm like, what the heck is that guy doing? And it's like it's probably made me a super grouchy driver because I'm like, that guy's on the line, and like
well, we see it too, and people do feel so passionately about it, and it's not only just I don't know, it reflects also to future events. Like we get inquiries from people who may not be referrals from past clients, but the mother of the potential bride will be like, I love your work, but I went to this one wedding and it was, for whatever reason, it was, too hot, or like there was just such a long line for the bar. We need to make sure that there's bartenders, and people notice those things. And it's just one of those things that like the guest experience really matters, and it matters to us. And I think that's sort of a mixture. We like an even mix of the two, where people are like, wow, this is beautiful and it's fun and it's.
Isn't it weird though that like so many people in our industry, I heard a planner at an event, it was a planner event, and they were on the stage and they were like, it's about us. She was like, it's about us, the planners. We're the stars of the whole experience, which on some level I'm like, okay, I get it. Like planners are a big deal. Don't get me wrong. But I think it's nuts how like our industry will always move towards this idea of like celebrity and you being a big deal. And like, when you talk to people who are doing really well, I don't really find that to be the case, but I hear that. Like, it blows my mind how many people are still like don't get it, that it's about the client and creating a good experience, and guests too, not just the client, but like.
Yeah, I mean, we're in the service industry. It's not about us, sadly. But we do get so many, oftentimes, like I was saying, where we're so, spoiled, I feel like, as planners outside of an actual wedding day. There's venues and catering companies and people who reach out to us to have us for dinner and stuff. We definitely get our time in the spotlight, but not on a wedding day. I feel like it's a very real, it's definitely a reality at the end of like, if it's 2 a.m., my feet hurt into like my back and I like can hardly walk, and I'm like, yep, it's not always like a flashy, glamorous glamorous job, but it's worth it. It's
humbling in a good way because it connects you to what matters. It'd be easy. I think it's important to still see your couples and still work and still show up on the day of and all that stuff, because you'll forget real quick. It's easy to forget.
Right.
Go ahead, Jared.
Yeah, I was. So, we talked a little bit about it at lunch, and where we get like our leads in general is usually photographers, planners, like other vendors, referral based. And you mentioned a lot of where you get your work from is referrals, right? Do you find that you're referred by other planners as well? Kind of like we talked about it too, like you're the beginning of the lead train and kind of the end of the lead train as well. So like where in general are you getting your work from? Because I think a lot of people at home, this channel, a lot of people are probably, photographers, videographers, like kind of that side of things, and not really understanding the world that you're living in and kind of how you're getting work in general and what your relationship is to the client. So in general, how does the process start?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's just through email. A lot of the times, if it comes from another planner, they send them our emails. If they see our website, we have all of our personal emails up there. So mine's on the website. People can reach out directly. I don't know. It's interesting because I know that you had asked about maybe like a website form. We don't have one on our website.
You should get one.
Well, it's interesting because I feel like
because we could just go steal
what's
your
the
email
philosophy
and spam you
behind that?
So I don't actually know because I didn't. I mean, the company was around before I was on the website, so I'm not sure.
That.
I wonder.
Just do things the way you do them.
Well, I've actually never thought about this before, but here's my just initial thought on it. Is I think that so I worked full time for an event company. Totally, it was like a bar and restaurant in the city. Totally different, not weddings at all. And we had a form on our website, but a lot of the time when we would get inquiries through the form, it was always just like. People would just be like, "Hi, I'm having an event. Let's talk."
Yeah.
And it was, and then we'd get back to them and say, "Where's your event? Like, how many people are you having? What are the details? Blah blah blah." But there's something about this like connection. We're also such a small company that it's like there's also this connection of like someone emails like Rachel at Loli Events, and they're just like, "Hi, Rachel. Like, I'm so and so. Nice to meet you." And there's this like human connection of like now you're connected with this actual planner who's going to talk to you, and you. Their initial email is now this pressure of like instead of it being a form, they're actually sending something to me. So what's their first impression and like what are they sending? And so I think it tends to be they include a lot more information. It's a lot more personal. I don't know.
You're getting
you have this immediate access to them.
You're getting the
I don't know.
I like forms because then someone can't scrape my email address off the
internet. Oh, we certainly get lots of vendor, but I don't know. I don't mind it. I think it's nice for the client to be able to make this, because also too for planning, it's like if they're booking us for full planning, they're gonna literally be speaking to us most every day for the next like year.
Don't get me wrong. I won't
It's
make them
fine
fill
for
the
them to
form
be
out
connected.
every time they communicate with us. Just the first time.
Yeah, totally. But,
oh, that's interesting though. It's like everybody does things in such different ways, and a lot of the reasons we do them is just because that's what we did them.
Yeah.
It's like,
no, I think there's something to be said about it. It also depends. I don't know. It depends on where it's coming from. If a lot of the time people don't even if it's a couple that's maybe reached out to another planner and they're like, I'm already booked, but email Rachel. Here's her email address. People just copy and paste that and send it right to us. So they're not gonna like from there go to our website and fill out a form if they already have our email address anyway.
So that you hit on something there. Somebody literally just technically a competitor directly referring you. And then you had also mentioned over lunch, do you have tell us about that dinner? Because that's just, I want people to know about what's going on in New York because it's very fascinating.
Yeah. So can I name?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Cool.
I mean,
So Jove Meyer does this dinner, and it's typically once a month, but it depends on time of year. He'll do during the peak season. It doesn't really happen, but during the quieter times, he'll do a dinner once a month, and it's called the Planners Dining Club, and it's based on collaboration over competition. Is kind of his like motto for it. And it's interesting because as planners, we get together so often for, like I mentioned before, like venue tastings with new caterers, walkthroughs at new venues, just other vendors around the city trying to host, because they know too, it's like their way in also is kind of through the planners. So they'll host us all together at once. And so we end up spending all this time together, and it's no fun if you get there and everyone's just like whispering about one another. Everyone's friends, and there's so much business to go around, and not to say that it's not something to work hard for. We certainly have to work for our business, but every planner is a little different. Their clientele is a little different. So we certainly spend a lot of time with other planners, and we exchange business, I think. And some of it can just be from, I'm literally booked, and I cannot book this client. Who do I know that has a similar aesthetic to me that I could send them their way? And it's I don't know, too, the internet's a scary place. It's like you can end up Googling NYC wedding planners, and you don't know if these people are good or like if they're
real.
paying to be on top of Google or whatever.
Totally.
It's a lot about that referral system.
Yep.
So we're happy to do it, and I know other planners do it for us as well. And it's just
when you get into that luxury space, like serving your couples obviously that's your whole game plan, but like serving people that aren't your couples too, it's also part of your brand as well. Like even if you can't serve them, you can serve them by serve them on their wedding day. You can serve them by providing them
it's your
with
reputation.
a great resource.
Yeah,
because
totally.
that's your brand, is just good service across the board.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things like with our month of planning, we're not really involved in their booking vendors, but I always tell my clients for month of, I'm like, if you're booking me a year out and you're booking me for month of, like, if you don't have certain vendors booked, just email me. It takes me 5 minutes to draft you an email on people that we know are awesome, and it takes you hours to like search Google and having no idea and just trying to figure it out. So I always include vendor recommendations if I'm not the one booking them as well.
We book 80% of our vendor referrals.
Yeah, cool.
If I get a vendor referral, I'm going to book them.
Yeah.
Basically, because that level of trust that we get from the planner, that level of trust that client has in the planner, and then you of course know like it's going to be a good wedding. Yeah, we're like, this is going to be awesome because everyone likes each other. And it's going to be a lot of fun.
I'd like to hop in a little bit because you mentioned that you do day of planning as well as like full on or full scope planning. Can you explain to people at home kind of what the difference is between the two are, what you can expect from a planner that's kind of full scope, that's involved for 2 years out, compared to somebody that's going to be involved for, is it like a month beforehand? Maybe just explain some of those differences, because I think we don't know the difference. Yeah,
definitely. I mean,
in a lot of cases.
It's interesting. I feel that we talk to every client from the start and just ask them what they have going already. Do they have a venue? Do they have any vendors booked? And then we kind of base our full service pricing off of that. It's never just a fixed, here's the price, and if you have a venue booked, it's still the price kind of thing. We definitely adjust based on that. But full service will include, booking all their vendors for them, handling their budget, keeping them on track from month to month. We create a really detailed month-to-month checklist for them. There's really no limit. We always joke we're like tying their shoes in the morning. That's that's how detailed it gets.
The 42 North podcast, they were talking about how they will pick outfits. They'll sometimes be like, bridesmaids should wear this. It coordinates with
totally. Yeah, we help them if they need help getting their bridesmaid dresses, rehearsal dinner outfits, whatever. I mean, it's everything. And then of course, we have a handle in the design. So we set, we go to all their meetings with the, rental companies, florists. Yep. It's really from start to finish. And some clients come in and they're like, here's my budget, here's my aesthetic. I want nothing to do with the rest of this. Here you go. Like, take this and run with it. And some want, to be CC'd on every single email, and they want to be a part of it as if they're really in the planning. So we just learn from each client. And then whether it's full planning or, day of, we start typically with day of coordination. I actually touch base with them like a month out.
Okay.
And start building their timeline. We do a final walkthrough, touch base with all the vendors,
Cool.
and carry out the wedding day. And then with month of, there's like a tiny little difference between the two. With month of, I actually touch base with them 2 months out. And that one tends to be a lot more like vendor involved. So
Okay.
I'll like at that 2 month mark, just like touch base with other vendors, tie up all the loose ends, see if they're like missing anything major. It's
Sure.
a little more of like people who come to us and they're like, I think I did everything right, but maybe just
Can
like
you just dot the
double check.
I's and cross
and there's
the
like
T's?
enough
Yeah.
time. There's 8 weeks left, and
Yeah.
they're like, maybe if there's anything like crazy wrong with this, it's still time.
It's
to like,
catastrophic
fix it.
insurance. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you had mentioned like, oh, I'm going to refer someone who's good, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get this person or get this person. What is the, like, this is primarily targeted at wedding creatives. And I think a lot of wedding creatives are looking to get into the luxury market. And we always tell people the key is the planners, the key is the venues. Brides are going to trust their planner. If the planner says don't hire them, they're not going to hire them.
Yeah.
It's just how it is. And so I always think like the number one way for you as a wedding creative to get into the industry, either you get really lucky, you happen to shoot something that just gets you published and which is, you could get a great client, but maybe the designer on that day didn't do a good job and you're not going to get published. Mm-hmm. But the other way is you work with really great planners, right? You break in and they have access to luxury clientele on a consistent basis. You're not going to get all their weddings, but maybe 1 or 2 a year you end up working with them. Have you ever worked with a wedding creative that you're like, never again? Is anyone on your blacklist?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if
wouldn't
it's
go
not
into
like
it,
a
but-
physical blacklist.
No,
I think
it's
it's
like-
a total mental blacklist
Yeah.
of like,
Yeah. But I think it's important for people to know.
Yeah. Well,
Not
the
not who it
interesting-
is or what the story is, but that like I firmly believe this. Like, if you get on someone's bad side, if you get on a planner's bad side, for your good reason or bad reason, you're just not going to get their
Yeah.
clients anymore.
Yeah, it's it's interesting. I feel like although we do provide those recommendations for vendors with our smaller like month up and day up packages, sometimes people have already booked someone else that they found on the internet or whatever. And I think that's kind of our chance to work with new vendors that maybe we haven't worked with yet. And I think part of it is nice because it doesn't fall back on us. It's not like, oh, hey, I'm trying out this new person and I don't know anything about them. I haven't heard anything, but let's like go for it. And then the wedding day comes and it's a disaster. And the client's like, well, you recommended them.
Wow,
sort of
that's such a
thing.
good way to put it, though.
Like with the smaller packages, we're like, okay, at least we get to test the waters. And
Yeah.
there have been so many awesome vendors that have come out of that I've just been like, I haven't heard of you and I didn't know of you, but you did an awesome job today and let's work together again. And there's some that we work with a lot now who we just crossed paths with.
Yep.
Yeah.
So if somebody was like, I really want to work with you, what would you recommend?
Well, I mean, a number of things. I think that it's nice to like take a look at their work and see other maybe planners that have worked with them before, or other vendors who have worked with them and had a great experience. I think that's something that means a lot. It depends. It depends on the vendor, but I think just again back to that referral system. People that have had great experiences, it speaks a lot.
I think it's all about who you know.
Yeah.
I think like I was saying, like for me, luxury weddings are not about how much you get paid to work at the wedding. Even though hopefully they're commiserate, right? They follow each other. The more it's at the wedding, the more you get paid. Hopefully. But I also think like it's more about the company you keep, right? It's about like, do you roll with this high-end crowd or do you not? And I think what more people should be angling for is less about making high-end money and more about creating high-end connections.
Right.
Ray Roman talks about it all the time. He's always like, oh, it's all about who you know. And he'll always talk about, oh, the planner at the Ritz in New York City. This person. And like, those are his people. Those are the people, like, if you know this person, then maybe they'll know a person. And then, but at the end of the day, like, they're going to go like, oh, well, Ray must be good because she wouldn't work with him if he was bad. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people, they want to just be like, my work is great. And then planners are like, well, who do you know? Like, nobody knows you. Maybe your work is great, or maybe you just spent 7 days walking around the woods shooting this, making this fake video. Who knows? So I think it's all about who you know, and I think more people should be angling at creating relationships, genuine relationships, not using people, adding value to them, being friendly, but finding a way. How do I hang out with these people? How do I get to know them personally? How do I create relationships with these people and value add them?
Right, definitely.
So when do you think the best time would be, say, I'm a photographer, I've been booked by you or by the couple themselves. When do you usually like to catch up with the creative about scheduling, about things that the creative needs for the wedding day to be able to produce their work?
Yeah, I mean, for us, typically, it also depends on how long we've been working with the client. So if it's full planning, we typically will start, I would say, like 3-ish months out to really start on like a super detailed wedding day timeline.
Yep.
And at that point, we have a lot more answers. I mean, it's one of those things, too, where it's like, I think clients get so excited. Like, if you're working with them for 2 years, it might be like at the 1-year mark, and they're like, let's talk to our band. And then, and then the band's like, sure, but like, everyone's going to forget this conversation within like the next few months. And then we're going to have to have it again.
Thank you. It doesn't even matter. We don't have a timeline. It doesn't matter what we decide.
So I think a lot of those, I mean, of course, this is different with like design. If we're designing a table or, whatever the case may be, we can certainly, get some
even
of those
florist,
things
right?
booked. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that we can get some of those things booked and reserved, rentals, things like that a little bit more in advance. But when it comes to like these detailed wedding day, how the day is going to flow, I mean, people will change their mind about things. You might have more bridesmaids, or the hair and makeup schedule will change, or whatever. The things will just change so much that within that time that we really start this like backbone of a timeline, I think is the best time for like photo, video, band.
I usually I'll catch up with a bride, anywhere from 2 years to 6 months before the wedding. Set them up with the shooter that will be their day of, so they can have this little connection. But it's not even, I don't even want them to talk about schedule. Usually it's like 2 weeks beforehand, because like we're not, when we're shooting, stop go love films, we're not even really having a lot of weight thrown into the conversation about scheduling. Usually that's going to be more the photographer, because they want half an hour right after portrait or right after the ceremony for portraits. And so I'm like 2 weeks beforehand is like perfect for us.
And again, I mean, 3 months is a pretty hefty time. Like, I feel like that's with our full planning clients. A lot of the time, if they've hired us for month of, like I mentioned, it'll be 2 months. With day of, it'll be 1 month. So it depends. But yeah. And then we really will send out like a few weeks in advance. Like, okay, here's the latest timeline. And then it sometimes will be even like the Monday of the wedding week. Then we'll be like, okay, final version, everybody.
Here's a question for this is for the creatives. When creatives have creative requests for how they like to work, when do you want to know that? How soon is that helpful to you to know in the planning process?
I mean, specifically, like,
could be I want this amount of time. I want to be in this place. Oh, we're at this venue. I want to go to the rooftop. Or I need 40 minutes, or I need this, or I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, I think it's good to know as soon as possible. I feel like even if we're not working on the wedding day timeline yet, I think it's just good precedent to set, so that it's not like, hey, we're sharing the final and it needs more editing sort of thing.
So that's not, you don't love that?
I'm the queen of cushioning time, though, so I feel like there's 40 minutes anywhere.
Yeah, you're always planning on some random photographer telling you that they don't have enough time.
Yeah, or like a shuttle to take longer than it should. Something to happen.
Oh, can we?
Especially in New York City. Oh my God.
They're the worst. I hate that part about city weddings.
It's one of those things. We have like I have a call with my team like the week before every wedding, and it's always this like, hey guys, guess what? There's no transportation. Yay!
And no parking. And nothing.
Yeah. Everyone's like, woohoo, an easy wedding.
Yeah. I love, especially like being in the city. Like this summer, I felt like it happened a lot too, where it was like, oh, the bus driver missed the turn, so now they're stuck in traffic. And it's
40
like
minutes later
20
now.
minutes later they roll around.
I mean, I'll cushion regardless. It's like, let's get there early and take photos or do something. Let's hang out early.
If you've never done if you're listening to this and you've never done like big city weddings, at least in the Northeast, every one of these weddings basically goes exactly like this. You get to some place, you're getting ready or whatever, but you drive there, you park, you spend $40 to park at that one place for like 3 hours. Then you go to some church where there's no parking, a Catholic church or whatever.
Yeah, the churches for sure.
And you go to some place where there's no parking. Maybe you just say, I'm going to get a ticket, and you just park anyway. So you get a ticket there, $40. Then you try to do portraits, but then something happens with some shuttle or whatever. The only thing that I ever see that tip pretty much runs on time is usually we finally caught up by the time the cocktail hour ends. But pretty much from the beginning of it, once you get on that first shuttle to get to or I don't get on the shuttle, but the bride and groom do, you might literally not have an actual real parking spot for 3 or 4 locations. In city weddings, you have to move locations more than any other wedding.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where, like, I don't know, once this is what you do, you kind of don't know any different. So you're just like, okay, this is how things have to go. This is the time cushion. And, like, we call shuttle drivers, like, 2 hours before. And we're like, please arrive 15 minutes early. And
you do weddings Cedar Lake, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So when you do Cedar Lake.
Oh, everything's there.
You're just like
yes.
Now we're going to walk here. Now we're going to walk there.
Yep.
We do a lot of weddings like that, by the way, where it's all in one place. And then we also do a lot of city weddings.
Yeah,
And
same.
the city weddings, we get like an hour and a half less content.
Yeah.
Because you are literally just traveling, switching, moving. That's what they're like. So if you're like not into that and you want to have just an actual timeline that you can predict, you're not flexible, don't try to get into the inner city weddings.
Yeah. I mean, if we're doing our jobs right, then I think the timeline typically goes towards pretty close.
Yeah.
I mean, there's also, not to get into like logistics that nobody cares about, but there's things like church weddings where the church is literally like, you have to be out of here by X, Y, Z time. So then we're like, we cannot
like
actually be
wedding.
late, or else the priest will like tell us no for the ceremony.
Yep.
It's like, there's no communion.
What about
at
the water
ceremony.
when the water main breaks in the middle of Manhattan? Did you see that today?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's nothing that New Yorkers love more than a parade, right? So, like, every Saturday, we're just like, okay, what parade is going to be in the way of our wedding?
Yeah, there's a parade.
How do you even find out? Oh, my God.
Because the city's a living thing.
Yeah.
That's the thing is you're in it.
As much as we like to think that the world revolves around us and our wedding day, sadly, New York City goes on.
Yeah.
And other things are happening, so.
But it becomes part of the day, too. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Is like, I've learned to go with it. And, like, you do a lot more in a hotel, for instance. So the hotel better be nice. But you do a lot more in the hotel. You do a lot more at the final location, like, as opposed to, a wedding where you might be working at Cedar Lake, where you're going to go, like, we're going to shoot the ceremony, then we're going to walk right out and do portraits. Mm-hmm. You might not do that in inner city wedding because you might literally be in an alley. Mm-hmm. You're like, we're not going to do portraits here. We're going to do all our portraits back at the hotel. And it's like, it just changes the way you think about the day and how you plan. And I think I was very anti-inner city weddings for a couple of years because I had some bad experiences. But I've had some good experiences in a row, and I think I'm figuring it out. But that's what you do every day, though.
Yeah.
You're doing this stuff. Like you said, you don't even know any different anymore, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, it's such a treat, too, for people because a lot of the couples, I mean, some of them are born and raised here, but so many aren't. And their guests are coming in, and it's a weekend for them to spend in New York City. And I don't know, we find the RSVP rate ends up being pretty high. And
interesting.
People love it. I mean, it's a whole weekend of
I love
New York City. Yeah.
New York City. You're from Austin originally, right?
Yeah, well, from Houston, but I lived in Austin for a bit. Yeah.
I'm from Boston. Not even from Boston. I'm from outside of Boston. Jared's from close to me, but I've grown up just taking weekend trips to New York City, and it's always been my favorite city.
Yeah.
Since I was a kid, it's just so many awesome things. I mean,
it's not even New York City; it's the city.
Yeah,
it's when's the last time you've been down to the city? It's the city.
The city. We're going to New York. So let's talk a little bit about what are you into these days? Just personal stuff. What's your favorite thing right now? Like, tell me about what you're into.
Oh gosh, it depends on the time of year, I guess. I mean, right now it's kind of a little bit of our quiet time, so I don't know. It's so funny. I actually was thinking about this question over the weekend, and I was asking my boyfriend, like, what are some cool things about me? Because I feel like I need to answer this
It can
question.
be lame, too. Whatever you're interested in.
No, I think that the funny thing is whenever I started planning, I had a full-time job, and I started freelancing with weddings, and I almost considered like wedding planning to be my like thing.
Yeah.
That was just like, this is what I love to do on the side, and like I'm working towards like being able to do this. And now that I'm doing this, I'm like, what is my thing now? Other than like saying the most boring answer, which is like work.
No.
Work is my thing.
I think that is the creative, like we talk about it a lot on the podcast, which is like identity.
Yeah.
Like there's ego, identity, right? And these things are constantly wrestling, right? Am I good? I'm actually the best. Well, am I the best? And then also like, I love what I do. I love what I do. I love what I do. Our favorite thing oftentimes is our work. Some people's favorite, I think you wouldn't be that successful if work wasn't your favorite thing.
I mean, there's something,
I don't know.
There's something interesting to be said about the wedding planning whole, like the wedding planner as a whole needs to know about food and wine and paper and music and photos and videos and like all these things. I need to be like a little bit good at a lot of different things. And I think there's a lot of time that I spend or need to spend improving on little things, whether that's like I heard of a planner recently who's like taking a like class on lighting and things like that are just like so much to learn, and it's all worldly stuff, but it all kind of circles back into like your job. It's like you can go to a tasting with a couple one day, and then you can go the next day and like be looking at flowers, and you need to be an expert on like both of those things. You need to have like the perfect palette and like the perfect eye and like all these things. So I feel like a lot of my outside time too can be or should be spent, but sometimes is spent on improving just like as, I don't know, like a person.
You quickly realize it's like it becomes such a deep part of who you are in general. It's just the work that you do, like, because it's a, you know, it's the way you see the world now. It's like through creating stories, like, and so everything that I do, it's like, well, I want to read this book and like, oh, like that can relate to the way that I film weddings, and like that can relate to the way that I do business and the way that I interact with people. It's like, yeah, I mean, doing what we do now, work in general, is just like a big, huge part of who I am.
Do you have Disney Plus?
I do actually.
Have you watched the Imagineering series?
No.
Oh, so
you got to watch it.
What's it called?
You as a plan,
you as a plan have to watch it. It's Imagineering. It's the people who build the parks.
Oh, cool. Okay.
And they talk. It reminds me of being in the celebrations industry.
Totally.
Because it's about, you know, all this fancy stuff, high-end stuff. There, of course, they're talking about cutting-edge technology and all this entertainment stuff and creating an environment and experience. But it's also a human thing. And so I think it's really easy to fall in love with this industry because you're not doing something that, you're not a dentist that everyone hates. You're not, you're everyone loves you. They look at you and they associate the best day of their life with you. And you're part of it, and you get to kind of like get a contact high from their awesome day, and like I hope people listening to this always come back to gratitude, and like when they hear you say like I love my work, it makes me happy. Yeah, like that's nothing to be ashamed of. And I hear so many people, and I think it's cool, work-life balance, great. I do support that, and you know you got to take a break when you need a break.
Right.
But if you're like, well, I kind of just love working though, and you like. I think people feel bad about that sometimes. And I'm like, you shouldn't feel bad about that. Yeah. It's like, it's fulfilling. You love your work. Great.
Right. And I feel like so much of our energy goes into it. I mean, there are certainly other things that I love doing. I'd certainly love, you know, relaxing. I love a good margarita. I love sitting out. I think that my biggest thing is no matter, I mean, of course, this time of year it's hard, but just like being outside for me is like so important. And I can be sitting out in a patio restaurant, like drinking with my friends, or I could be on a beach, or I could be traveling, or whatever. But if the sun's shining and if it's like somewhat warm outside, I like have to be out there. It actually kind of like pains me if there's sun shining and I'm sitting inside. And I don't know, something about like that. I think that I I think that just like kind of relaxes me. So I think between the two, I don't know, but
It's that fuel. It's that refuel.
Yeah. It's like ultimate work, like super hard work, and then just like super hard relaxation.
Yep, and you gotta have both sides, but don't feel bad. If you love working hard, don't feel bad about it. Don't let people guilt tripping you into taking 20 vacations a year or something.
Yeah. No, I love vacations.
You guult trip me all the time for going on vacations, Jay.
I do not. I support your vacations wholeheartedly, 100%.
Yeah.
What's your thing, Jay? You talked about the board earlier.
So I'm excited about exploring some desserts tonight.
Okay.
Like right. I'm already thinking through like what should I get dessert tonight?
Oh gosh. What are your options? What are you kind of looking into?
I can do anything.
It's New York City.
Oh.
That's all I have to do is go get dessert. That's my one thing.
We didn't get cheesecake.
I can drive all the way up to the total other side of Manhattan to eat it.
Yeah.
I can do whatever I want.
I don't know. I'm actually not a huge. I love dessert, but I try to steer away from it. So I'm not the best dessert.
So
if you were
bad, if you were bad and you were cheating, what would you eat for dessert?
I'd probably go for. I like a good cheesecake. I also like a really good like warm chocolate chip cookie.
I mean, you're speaking my language. I do feel like getting some cheesecake, and I love diner cheesecake, but I'm wondering if there's a greater experience I can seek.
Maybe it's just because it's where I've always gone for cheesecake, but it's like Times Square. I just always got Times Square.
You just go to that dumpy diner and get a $5 cheesecake, and it's so good.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if there's like someone who's going to elevate it and blow my mind, and that's what I think I'm going to look for tonight. It's like, how do I take this cheesecake thing to the next level, the ultimate level? Can I spend $20 on a cheesecake? Yes.
You can spend $20 on a cheesecake easily in New York City.
Let's do it. So Jared now is going to tell us all.
I've been thinking about it because you caught me off guard in the last episode.
Even though we do it
I opted out. I was like, mental break. So I have been. We were talking a little bit about it in the taxi, but I've been reading all old classic literature lately, and trying to read like at least 1 to 2 classic lit books every week. And I just finished The Sun Also Rises by Hemingway, and
I have actually never read that.
It's a good one. It's a good one. It's like the reason why people know about Running with the Bulls in the West is because of that book. But it really made me want to go to Spain. It really made me want to travel again. And so, that's kind of been my inspiration as of late because Spain is unbelievable. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Rachel,
we're checking out. And I think just like reading, like I like to watch a lot of like movies and like get inspiration from that. But also I think reading old books is kind of my thing right now. So, it's been fun.
I think what you talked about, not what I talked about.
Yeah.
What I talked about was pure idiocy. But is like, how can I find a way to entertain myself, but also expand myself?
Yeah.
And I think like that's a cool thing is like whatever field you're working in, like even when you're not working, you're kind of working.
Yeah.
You're building yourself up. You're making yourself better. And like
I say it all the time, like in order to be a better creative, you have to learn how to be a better person and be more educated. And like, that's the reason why I love the Imagineering series and learning about the history. Because like what they did was like they took inspiration from all these different things and they turned it into creating worlds, like whole different
It's like
experiences.
Hospitality industry meets epic storytelling meets ultimate technology meets guest experience. It's like
it's the reason why I like the Roxy is because like I walk in here, I feel like I'm in like the 1920s. Like immediately I'm like, wow, this is a cool experience. And like same thing with that wedding we shot on New Year's. It was like, here we are, and before everything's set up, it's just a room. And then it's transformed into like an ice palace. It's like total different experience.
Weddings are awesome.
Yeah.
Weddings are awesome. I'm sorry. Like, if you get to work in this industry, don't complain. I want to hear about it.
Yeah.
It's great. Yeah.
Like, it's a great industry. Hey, thank you so much, Rachel. We had an awesome time.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rachel.
Where can everybody find you?
What do you mean? Like email?
The social world.
Yeah. So our wedding account is Loli Events, just LOLI.
Yeah, you don't need to give out your personal account.
Yeah.
What's your address and social?
Yeah, where can they actually find me day to day?
Here's my address. Hey, thank you so much for being on the show. Definitely check out Loli Events. They do amazing work, really, really good. And it's definitely like my take on your work, it's different than what you would expect coming out of New York City. And I think that's a great thing.
Awesome.
So,
yes.
Have an awesome day, guys. Thanks for checking out the Wedding Pros podcast. See you soon.
Thank you.